So he has really nobody to relate to. He's the guy that did a Zoom call while his wife was delivering. Push, baby, push, he's really into it.
I thought it was gay.
Yeah, he's not gay. He's not gay. Malaysian, where's my Malaysian boy? Malaysians look gay. That's the way it is, Yeah.
That's on YouTube.
Yeah. I don't want a bunch of Malaysian offers. Okay. If you forward them to Kim, they'll forward them to him. Yeah. But the docs often make it more difficult than it needs to be, for all the reasons we've talked about. But I mean, he made it work. He followed the steps. Now, the study he paid $5,000 for, he didn't say what he paid for it. You can Google KPMG critical care, and they got a report. You Google PwC critical care, they've got a report. You Google University of Chicago, the grad school, they got a report. Wharton, he didn't have to pay that money, but anyway, but the associations, and in his particular case, though he didn't mention it, because he went to two very fine schools, he can utilize the alumni. Now, some of the guys that are going to go into healthcare, that you need doctors on your board. The retiring head of University of Southern California Medical School, a great potential chairman, or any of the big medical schools, since they're retired, and they're looking to feather their nest. And if you, by happenstance, happen to have gone to that school, it makes it even easier because you're part of the alumni. But for those of you that didn't, we've got board members, we've got deputy and undersecretaries of health, not the secretary of health, but that deputy and then the undersecretaries of health are on boards because normally they're not as conflicted as the secretary of health education would be. But he's done well. Some of you that are on the pleasing end of the continuum will be able to relate to him more than some of the other guys. Questions about Dr. Joe? Doc?
What made him pivot from emergency to just revenue?
Revenue.
Yeah.
No, margin. Okay, because telemedicine is big margin. I mean, big margin. Whereas critical, you still have to have people in there. You got to have, doctors. You've got to have nurses. You got to be able to, do stuff.
Has he chosen one state in particular because they're sort of positive for?
Correct.
Okay.
California, Southern California.
Okay.
Southern California, and portable medicine. That's not a term, but portable medicine is very in vogue for the Southern California lifestyle. I call it hippie medicine, but anyway, that lifestyle is very transient. And he also made the point, he didn't say it, he said it slightly different way, is that your board is in transition. He didn't use those words, but the same guys that start with you aren't going to be the same guys that finish with you. He put it that way. But he got all world class right out of the box. I mean, they all, just fell, I won't say they fell down on their knees, but they just about fell down on their knees. That's why docs, if they stay in medicine, if a doc goes out and tries to do a manufacturing deal, nobody gives a shit that you're a doctor, But if you stay pretty much in medicine or health related, which is a gazillion of them, and I've never seen a medical doctor roll up dental practices or vice versa. That may be a stretch, a bridge too far, but the dentists staying with dental practices, doctors, generally speaking, staying with medical practice works like a charm. And they give you all kinds of benefit. When do we talk to Peter? Tomorrow, okay. When Peter talks about the hospitals, and he's not a doctor, he's not anything like that, it may give you pause for thought because he's now got 200 physicians on his payroll, and he says trying to manage 3 physicians is impossible. 200 is unreal. because 200 physicians have 400 opinions.
Oh, I've heard it's like herding cats.
Yeah.
A lawyer told me once.
Yeah. Herding cats. Yeah. Yeah. And but I mean, he was able to do it, but that's for tomorrow. Okay. Yes, sir.
Some of the websites that he listed, business brokers go on there. What are your?
Well, I mean, even though I tell you I don't like to use business brokers, almost everybody looks at them, not necessarily uses them, because they're a good frame of reference. For example, the Northwestern United States, there's probably 5 major business brokers. They will have listed 95% of everything's for sale that's listed. So you get a good idea where they are. They'll say the tri-state, what is it?
Tri-Cities.
Tri-Cities area, whatever. And so I like to use them for that. But you've got to remember, the business broker should only have allegiance to the seller, because that's who's paying him, not you. But if I give a business broker a business, $2 million I want, and he puts it on the market for 2.5, because he's getting a percentage of the sale price, it's to his benefit to sell it at obviously 2.5, and the seller's not going to complain because he's getting more money. And so he's not working for your business interest. He's working for the sellers. And as long as you understand that, and as long as you don't walk into it naively, plus business brokers have a proclivity of lying, cheating. That's just the way it is. And the prospectuses they put together are not registered by the SEC. They're not registered by anybody. They can they don't have to put the facts down. It's a selling document. And you got to remember, these documents that are professionally prepared are selling documents. And there should be a disclosure on the last page on the bottom. There was no guarantee that these numbers are accurate or blah, 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 because they're not. In fact, there are selling documents the kids have found in the last couple of years where they show this great hospital. That's not the one they're buying. And they show these pictures of the halls and the doctors and the good-looking nurses walking back. That's not the hospital you're buying. That's not the critical care unit you're buying. That picture of the critical care unit we bought was actually the one we bought. And as it turned out, 95 or more % of all the patients were Hispanic. So when I walked in, they thought that Moses just got there. But there's another question. Yeah.
What about circumventing the business broker? And if
it's not worth the hassle. There's plenty of people for sale. You don't have to circumvent them. But they'll tell you, oh God, I wish you were here 3 months ago. I just signed a deal with a broker. Okay, when does your broker expire? Put it in your file. Call him a week or 2 weeks before his agreement expires and then be the first on his door. But business brokers are, now there's a few really super legit ones, but the super legit ones are doing the big deals. And a business broker, and the big deals, you're going to hire an iBank, some investment bank or a boutique investment bank. And back in the day, even people, the Guthrie Group, which was a boutique investment bank, the one that I still have, but it's not very active anymore. And normally, when the iBanks, investment banks are normally either on the sell side, their sell expertise is greater than their buy expertise. And so you want to know that. But these are questions, you're not going to be dealing with investment banks unless some of you decide to go dinosaur hunting, which I'm not telling you not to, but I'm just telling you the odds are against doing a deal quickly. I won't say they're impossible, because nothing's impossible, but they are. And since most of you want to put not just cash in your pocket because you need the cash in your pocket to prove to yourself that you can do it. It's much harder after 18 months to keep telling you, I know it works, I know all these guys made it work, but I still haven't made it work. That's some of the guys, like Simon the Bill, we're going to hear tomorrow. I have 2.5 years, just kept pounding his head into the cement wall. Didn't listen to anybody. And it got done. And I got done. Anything about Joe? Yes, sir.
This vision that he developed from emergency to telemedicine came from him.
No, I don't know how he got it. It's not important how he got it. It's not important. But I mean, critical care units are harder to manage. They're harder to manage. And telemedicine is, nothing's easy to manage, but it's easier to manage. And the telemedicine docs are almost, I haven't checked the roles recently, but they're almost all residents that are starving to death because they, while they're doing the residency and they're doing this 6 hours a day or 20 hours a week or whatever, and you're paying a resident a hell of a lot less. When you're doing it with doctors normally want a revenue share. They want a revenue share. Because doctors normally, they're just getting paid for time. They're swapping time for money, basically. And the residents are grateful for a job. The doctors have their nose in the sky. They're not so grateful. Their Hippocratic oath and their bedside manners disappears when they're fighting over money. They become just like the Neanderthal, that they try not to be. No, I haven't flipped, guys, on YouTube. Don't worry, I haven't flipped. There was another question. Yes, in the back.
When it comes to business brokers, I know they can lie and make up a lot.
They
will.
Yeah.
So, but you go on fact check.
Absolutely, you do.
Yeah. But you get the tax returns and things check out, and they still have the fee.
But then they tell you why the financials that are in their prospectus don't have to match the tax return. I had a couple of you last year tape this. I want to hear this reasoning from the business broker, and he comes up with all this mumbo jumbo. But basically, I've never. Well, that's an exaggeration. Rarely have I seen a prospectus that was put together by a business broker that had any semblance of what the deal really was. There's a kind of a flavor in there. Yes, it is in Toledo. Yes, it is on the corner of such and such and such and such. Yes, it was started in 1996, but that's about the end of the true information. But you can get information and you can use them as a conduit of information. There's no problem with that. But business brokers is another layer keeping you adding time onto the deal. There was another hand. Anything else about Dr. Joe? But again, he immersed himself. One of the great takeaways that you should be getting is they all, not that I need the validation, they start the day with QLA. They get programmed. For the guy that's 40 years old, you've been out in the world about 300,000 hours. These 50, 60 hours can begin the change of those 300,000 hours. But they can't change those 300,000. They can only begin the change. They can be the first few steps in that transformation. But then you have to drive yourself, and drive is the operative word, and being willing to make sacrifices and readjust your schedule. And as Anali said quite poetically a few days ago, he had realized that after 18 years, and he was successful, and by all accounts, he was wealthy. I had been in bed with losers. And the thing that flipped a guy like him is, how much money could I have made in these 18 years if I had done it a different way? And as he pointed out, the deals, 3 of the 5 deals that he's closed now, were 5 times bigger than the business he had built in 18 years. And this was in 4 months. I mean, when you start, especially the guys that already have a business, and when you start to connect those dots, stop feeling sorry for yourself that you wasted 5 or 10 or 15 years. Just realize now you can make that money that you made, not overnight, but in a very short period of time. A very short period of time. And yes, ma'am.
Can you talk about embarrassing offer a little bit about what's the point?
I thought Asian women, like when the Chinese hooker said $10,000. I mean that's an embarrassment. I mean, what are you smoking, gal? What do you got down there that I don't know about? $10,000.
But what's the point that actually they're closing your door and get the hell out of here?
Well, sometimes that happens. Well, you don't look like Miss Pleasure and Sweetness anyway.
They close the door on you.
Okay, well then you're doing the right thing. You're doing the right thing. You've got to get with the program that it's a numbers, it's volume. They've used different words, but it all gets down to numbers, contacts. And the person that contacts the most people following this script or scripts that you have are going to make the most sales or buy the most, purchase the most companies. But okay, an embarrassing offer. The guy's, EBITDA says it's worth $2 million. Let's say it's cash flowing 500,000, real cash flow, 4 times, maybe 2.5 million, okay? 1.5, my first offer. And 1 times out of 100, they accept it. And then you think, why in the fuck haven't I done this all my life? But then somebody slammed the door in your face. Or they might pick up your little sorry Korean ass and throw you out the door, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but remember, 3 to 5, the least embarrassing that's really, because you're telling them, remember, we're looking to pay 3 to 5. They think 5, really 6, and you're thinking 3, maybe 2. So you give them an offer at 3 times EBITDA. There's a big difference between 3 and 5 times EBITDA. Huge difference. But you're only offering things based on cash flow. Now, some of the guys, when you tell them, we're looking to acquire at 3 to 5 times EBITDA now, and then they won't really know what EBITDA means, but you explain to them it's just cash flow, and they kind of think that. But the smart sellers will say, what do you differentiate? How do you differentiate between 3 and 5? That's the real question. Because depending on how you answer that, we got something to talk about or we got nothing to talk about. And the answer is, and it's in the templates again, but the answer is the difference between 3 and 5 is, assuming that you have this cash flow, is we will determine it based on due diligence. If your numbers are 100% pristine, and nobody's numbers are 100% pristine, it'll probably be 5 times EBITDA. But there's going to be clawbacks. There's going to be things that you take out. The house, these ski chalet that you've been paying for your mistress for 10 years up there that you pay $7,000 a month, that's not a corporate expense. And we're not going to add that back into, in revenue. And you're going to see all kinds of things like this. You will be stunned to see how many 65-year-old guys had a mistress for 35 years that he bought a house for. You will be, first of all, you look at the old fuck, you must have looked different 30 years ago, Pops, but you'll be surprised. And how many women support their daughters that are married to some guy that's not making enough money. And they've got, some kind of salary. You'll be surprised. All that shit, you rip all that shit out. So when you say if it's pristine, I mean, he's already, fuck, are they going to find this? Are they going to find that?
And then you got him on something too.
Yeah, well, I've told you, once in 50 years, I've only seen the sales price or the valuation go up 1 time in 50 years after due diligence. Only once. And it just happened earlier this year. Yeah.
If it is pristine and you're buying it yourself, what do you do?
Well, you just you still want 5-6 times EBITDA, or maybe even. But if you're going to be part of the solution, meaning that you're going to be seller finance, seller's equity, then you could get 8 times EBITDA. I haven't seen the final numbers with Anelli, but I would be surprised if he didn't sell it for 50% more than it was worth. We gave him a slow note. Meaning how far? By slow, I mean 10, 15, 20 years. Now, you don't want to buy yourself on a 3-year note. No. You want a long note, And you're going to make money not on the interest rate you charge on the note. You're going to make the real money on the fact that you're overvaluing the business. Because in current notes on intercompany deals, the note may be 3%, 4%, at maximum 5%. You're not going to be when you buy yourself out, you're not going to be charging the guy 15%. Or not the guy, but the group of people. Because you're making the money you're selling a business that's worth $2 million for $3 million. For $3 million. And then, and remember, you're still, until they buy more than 50% of you, you're still the owner, and you can suggest to the buyers, purchasers, which are your former employees, that you should refinance it. Refinance it. Pay me off, pull out cash in 2 or 3 years. Buying your own business, your first acquisition's got a lot of benefits. A lot of benefits that aren't as apparent, that we can't cover every question here, but it's got a lot of benefits. One, you got a deal. Your willy is wet. The fact that you stuck it up your own ass, but your willy is wet, or stuck it in one other of your orifice, And number two, you have, not that you want to, for those of you that are pleasers, you've made your employees indebted to you forever. Okay? And you did them a good deal. Because most employees that work for the guys, yourselves included, aren't ever going to own anything. They're paycheck to paycheck, hand to mouth. And, maybe this is the first, I told Anel, he had 169 employees. Well, now you've helped 169 people. You only have that between that and 1 billion people left, so you did good, And it is a good thing to do. It's and I'm being sarcastic about it, but it is a good thing. But you're taking care of yourself first.
That's the part I'm confused. Like, you don't sell or finance yourself. You go get the zero.
No, it depends. You can do a combination. You can do 50-50. Depending on how strong your cash flow is, you get 50% commercial debt, 50% seller's note, seller's equity, which is you. But you have to run through the numbers and see which works out best. But it may not be 100%, maybe only 50%. And of that 50%, they're going to give you half of it or 3/4 of it. Some of these, when you sell your own business or you acquire your own business, you pull out cash because they're financing it with cash, the cash to pay down the seller. We have a cybersecurity guy in Washington, D.C. that just bought himself. It took a lot longer than it should have, and it's not a big deal. It's a few $1 million, but I think he pulled out $750,000. $750,000 of the purchase price went to him, cash money, and that's $750,000 more than he had. That's for sure. But you need to run through the numbers, whether it should be 100% seller finance or it should be 50%, 70%. Normally, it's going to be at least 50% seller finance and 50% commercial debt. Because the commercial debt is the money you're going to put in your pocket. You're going to put in your pocket. If you don't need any money in your pocket, then maybe it's only 10% commercial. Maybe it's only the working capital loan they're going to get. Maybe it's the working capital loan and part of the overdraft you're going to get. But it's a great mechanism, believe me. It is. Now, calling it an LBO is a stretch. But it is an LBO. It's a leveraged buyout. But it's a stock, it's an employee LBO, stock ownership deal with employees, the employees that work for you, whoever's got these businesses. But it's a great tool. And it's dead easy to get the commercial side of it. Dead easy. Because everybody that knows anything about the business is in the room sitting in your chair. So there's a comfort that the financial institutions have as opposed to you trying to buy somebody else's business you don't know anything about. You're there and you can answer all the questions. You can answer all the questions. You may not want to answer all the questions, but you can answer all the questions. And they perceive, the world or the financial world perceives a employee leverage buyout as the most transparent of transactions. The most transparent, and they deem, I don't necessarily agree with this, the least amount of risk. But I've seen very, very few in my 50 years employ stock option or employee purchases blow up. I've seen maybe 3 or 4 in 50 years. And that's normally when they were, let's say if you were in the buggy whip business and there are no more buggy whips. So the model died, there's no use for it. Or you made typewriters and the new electric typewriter came out, the IBM 360, okay, and you did Smith Corona typewriters. Or you made something that became obsolete. Example, I had a kid 20 years ago, his family made, the old Coke machines, Coca-Cola machines, where he stuck, in the old days, a nickel, then a quarter, and these big iron things, and then the little bottle of Coke dropped out. Okay. His grandfather had a patent on that or some shit, okay. And so he took that, and of course, now the Coca-Cola machines morphed, right? Because now all kinds of other shit you can get out of them, okay. So he had American factory, I think it was in Mississippi or someplace, where they made these things, and then it became too expensive, so then he moved the factory to Mexico, and it was still too expensive. And then they looked for some third area. I don't know where you go for. You go from Mexico to Guatemala, maybe, I don't know where. And then eventually the business closed down, okay? And that was an employee's option deal where he sold it to the employees, and it eventually went out of business because his model died. That's about the only time those deals die, is when there's a new technology or some scientific breakthrough and you happen to be the guy that's been doing it for 40 years, and most entrepreneurs do not invest money in R&D, research and development. That's the last thing anybody thinks of, because they think their model, like some of these internet models, selling shit on the internet. I mean, if it works, you've got 5 people competing against you within a week. And the same thing is in real business. So, but look hard. If you've got a business, as I've said already, look hard at that being your first acquisition. If not your first acquisition, like Thomas, it's going to be his 3rd or 4th, because he's pumping up the show dog right now. He's pumping up like a show dog because he's got these contracts, as I understand it, lingering, and he wants to make sure that he gets that valuation before he sells it on. So that may be his 4th or 5th acquisition. But it's in the same area. It's in the same, area of merchandising, advertising, etc.
Dan, how do you figure out the specific details of the negotiation?
There is no. You're making it more difficult. When you're buying yourself, you're negotiating on both sides.
Right. But you're talking about employee buyout, like the.
Well, no, the employee. Okay, you got 5 employees.
Okay.
Or you got 50 employees.
Okay.
Is everyone going to get 2%?
No.
Okay, it's going to be very varied, right?
4.
Okay, they're going to get 4%.
No, 4 employees. Right?
4 employees, are they each going to get 25%?
No.
Okay, somebody's going to get more, and somebody's going to get less, right?
All right.
So one employee's going to get 60%, one employee's going to get 20%. Or something, okay? Well then, that is their equity stake. Whatever you value the business, if it's $1 million, the guy and all these guys sign notes. These are personal notes that they guarantee. Now, I don't suggest that you chase your employees down when a guy has 3% and he stops making payments. But the payments are coming out of your cash flow. The payments aren't coming out of their bank account because they're buying you with your own cash. They're buying you with your own cash. But what it does is it allows you to step away from the business. Now, if the employees run it in the ground and go bankrupt, okay. But I mean, if they run the business properly, and you're still there, overhead like a helicopter mother, you're still watching the shit, and they're not stealing from you. And in your case, they're not shooting the dogs and all this shit like that, yeah. But it's an easy deal, and not just because you get your first deal done, but because you now have made your existing business. Now, some of you should just walk away, turn the key, forget about it. But for those businesses that are actually worth something, it allows you to bring in your existing business to your holding company and still allow you to continue to expand your QLA footprint. It's a great alternative. And as we showed with Deb, as we showed with Roberto, and Dr. Joe, it's and his was more complicated because he had a partner in the surgery, and so they worked through that. His partner was about early 60s, as I recall, that had enough. Just wanted to go fly fish, basically. You know. Yeah. Is that fly fish? Maybe that one's fly fish over there. Anything else about Dr. Joe? Okay, YouTube. Thank you.